Folks, Bobo here this afternoon. So, we're still in the formation phase. We've climbed out on departure in fingertip, allowing the student on the wing to practice the position. Now, what we're looking for here in fingertip is for his head, the student's head, to be a beam, the slab bolt, and to where he can see the tip of the wing in the star on the fuselage. So, this doesn't come out right with me trying to hold it up to the camera, so I'm not going to even pretend. But we're looking to put this part of the wingtip onto that star there, or right in the middle of that star for the proper orientation like this. You know, it's a wonder I don't have a mid-air collision with this airplane in my hand. Anyway, and then so we allow them to practice that, and then we might practice cross unders. That's to get the wingman from one side of the formation to the other. And the way we did that is we'd be flying along and just dip the wing like that if it's on the right wing. The student would retard the throttles a little bit and then just gently slide over, and then add power and kind of coast back into position on the other side. They always told me that flying on the right wing was easier than to fly on the left wing. I never noticed any difference. But the older guys would say that, and the reason is because you were looking over your throttles at that time, where it was kind of unnatural to look away from them. I just never paid attention. I didn't get that part of the briefing, so it didn't bother me. At any rate, we would coast out to the area and then be given, and like advance, be given a right turn into the area. So I always like to teach, try to use maneuvering to get into position to do your area work and so forth. And what I mean by that, when we turn into the area, let's just for grin say we've got the wingman on the right side now. So drive into the area, maybe a couple miles, a level flight, and then give them an echelon turn signal. Now, an echelon turn, both of you roll like this, and you're looking at the bottom of Leeds aircraft. Do a 180-degree turn. Now you're heading back out of the area, which is good. It's fine. You got a couple miles to play with. So then you give them a pitch out signal like that, and when the student acknowledges, again with a head nod, then lead pitches out. The student counts 4, and then he pitches out, or the wingman counts 4, and he pitches out. At 300 knots, 17,000 feet or so, you did a 180-degree turn with using 2 Gs, full military power, 2 Gs. It put the wingman about a mile spacing, which is what you want to do. And then to get into the area, you might do a straight ahead rejoin at that point. So you would rock whichever wing you wanted them to join on, whether it was a right or left. There's only 2 choices you had. Anyway, if you rock right, left, right, that told the student you're going to rejoin on the right side. So he comes in like that. And now when he comes in, you're probably pressing the other side of the area border boundary. So then you give them another pitch out signal and look back. They acknowledge it. So you pitch out. 4 seconds later, here comes Eric Schmuckenfuss. And this time we're going to do a turning rejoin. So on a turning rejoin, after 4 seconds, when you roll out, you got Schmuckenfuss a mile behind you. You take the airplane, say you want to join to the left. So you roll left, right, left, and then roll into a 30-degree bank turn, 300 knots. Now, initially, we went with 20 knots of overtake. That was more than enough just to acclimate the student, get them comfortable coming in on what we call a line, just an imaginary line out here. And they had to deal with vertical and also horizontal lateral displacement. Here, you wanted to be careful because you didn't want to get too low and then end up coming up into them, and you didn't want to get too high where you lose sight of them. You didn't want to get too far ahead, and you didn't want to get too far back in a tail chase. So those are the things that we worked on during this particular maneuver. Then once we got in, students pretty well warmed up, we would go into some easy going aerobatics, if you will. We would do lazy 8 maneuver, and then maybe a barrel roll where you come up and then do that. I don't remember if those were legal or not. I think they were, but anyway. Uh, and a couple, you do echelon turns, and then we would do close trail and extended trail. Now in close trail, you call close trail, and so from the fingertip position, he comes back and puts that front canopy bowl right on the tailpipes of lead. And then again, some gentle maneuvering there, just maintaining position. And that was a lot of fun to do. And again, lazy 8 maneuver and so forth. And then bring them back up on the wing, and we would call for extended trail. Now, in extended trail, the object is, first of all, to get the spacing, the correct spacing. And then, so the way we did that is, again, 60-degree bank turn, mill power, and then about 2 seconds rolls in, and then comes into the inside of the turn to give himself a little bit of an advantage. And then call Reno 172 is in. So then lead would begin maneuvering. Usually just roll it on down into, again, a lazy 8. Number 2 subjective was to stay 500 to 800 feet in a cone around the leader, and he could maneuver as necessary to maintain spacing. Both aircraft are at mill power, and you had to be careful there in the extended trail because you could gain just a bag full of energy if you weren't careful, and it could get out of hand. I remember one day I was leading a 2-ship out in western Oklahoma, and I had, let's put it this way, the kid was not a contender for the Thunderbirds, and he was on my wing out there, and we're in an extended trail, and I'm sitting up front watching my student as he leads the drill, and my attention's also diverted back, and we were just, it was going fast. All of a sudden, I felt the airplane starting to vibrate, and I went, geez, this thing shouldn't be vibrating like that. And I looked in, and here, what had happened is we were coming out of a maneuver and got the nose dug too far down, and then as a student was coming up, he was just pulling real gingerly. Well, all of a sudden, we're at 9,000 feet, and we're just bumping up against the Mach. Whoa, boy, the thing rattles when it gets going that fast. So anyway, just pulled it off and bled off the airspeed and got things under control again. It was fine. So we would do that, practice cross-unders, changing sides. Those were the initial basic maneuvers that we did until we got the students comfortable with fingertips, pitch outs and rejoins and so forth. Then we would introduce tactical. Now, tactical formation, those were a lot of fun because you put them 1,500 to 2,000 feet. I think they've changed it now. You put them out line abreast, and then you would maneuver like that. Okay? And I think we pushed the airspeed up to 350. And so, like when you're coming like this and you go into a turn, okay, if you go into a 90-degree bank turn and he comes into a 90-degree bank turn, it ends up way the hell out like this. So what the student had to do, or what the wingman would have, you go tactical, go into a left-hand turn, they had to come down, pick up a lot of smash, come to the inside of the turn, and then bleed it off to where he's in that same relative position of beam. So that was kind of challenging. We do turns like that. We do 90-degree turns. We do 180-degree turns. And so that was really a dynamic maneuvering exercise. And then we do some loose aerobatics like that, but not much. And then about halfway through the profile, we'd have a lead change and then just repeat the maneuvers with the other aircraft. We would continue maneuvering until we got down to the pre-brief bingo fuel. Now, bingo was what you called when you had to return to base with enough gas for a pattern for the recovery, the pattern and landing, and then taxi back in. Had to be above 600 pounds. So you work the problem backwards. If you want to land with 600, well, I like to land with 800. That way you give the student a little latitude in case anything happens. He has to go around. He's got 150 pounds to do a closed pattern. That's what it took for us to do a closed pattern and landing. And it's just a little pad like that. In student training, if something can go wrong, it will. And then the recovery about 400 pounds. So 8 and 4 is 1,200 pounds, and then you got a little bit more to drive to the recovery point. So typical bingo fuel might be 1,500 pounds in that case like that. And then what you do is you just split the gas with what you arrived with in the area. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what area work was like. In formation, our typical missions would run anywhere from an hour 20 to an hour 30, whereas contact, they would run from an hour 7 to an hour 12. And then we're out of gas there, mainly because we're just using the throttles up and back and forth and so forth. So that would be a typical formation area profile. And then we would modify it as necessary depending on the training requirements of our individual students. If one was weak in turning rejoins, we might spend more time dedicated to turning rejoins or extended trail or whatever we needed. But you kind of get a feel there for what we would do on a typical ride. So with that, this is Bobo Base Gear Stop. Glad to see everybody today.